Welcome back. You're listening to Motivation Minute, where we unravel the timeless truths in that stack of books you've been wanting to read so that you don't have to. And I'm Spencer Harrow. I'm a software engineer from Baltimore, Maryland. And I'm joined by Jariah Miller, a small business owner in Libby, Montana.
Hey, Spencer. How's it going?
Going well, Jariah. Hey, we have a treat tonight because we're doing, for the first time, a repeat episode. Not where you have to hear everything all over again, like you might think would come to mind with repeat, but we're going to revisit a book that we already did. Actually, two books. Yeah. It's even better.
Yeah, we've actually talked about both of these books in the past, but we're redoing it for a really special episode today. I've actually got a really good friend of mine on the show, Dave Powers. Welcome.
How's it going, guys?
It's going well. And you wanted to bring back up these books that had inspired you from our email communication between the three of us. And one was The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, and the second was The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. So welcome, and tell us a little bit about how these books as a whole have impacted you and your business.
For me, these books have been, especially The E-Myth, almost like an identity. I feel like The 4-Hour Workweek has been a lot of great tactics, and then E-Myth has been like trying to live into that identity of a entrepreneur, a business owner, and seeing that trickle down everywhere in our lives, even down to our family life and how we raise our 8-year-old son, like teaching him how to do the task versus how to own the task and the differences between that. So this has been an identity shift that has been seeping into my blood for probably over 10 years now. So it is, this is the E-Myth has been like a Bible for us here in the business world. Yeah.
So it's not just like a random book that you read.
Oh no.
That stood out to you. These two books are like,
it's a self-help.
This is your identity.
Who he is.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I've known you for a little while, but I honestly don't think I've heard some of the backstory, or like, when did you first get started, or like know that you want to be a business owner / entrepreneur, or what started you like on personal growth, self-help, all that. So how old were you and when did you start?
Yeah, it all started for me in 2004. And so I grew up, I'm 41 now. So I grew up in the 90s as far as like high school and college time. I didn't really go to college. But I never I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. I mean, I guess I heard of the word. I later figured that out years later after I kind of was one. But I always got really bad grades in school. And I just kind of believed that if you didn't get good grades in school, you couldn't get a really good job. And I grew up in the Silicon Valley at the time. So
that would be a prevalent idea out there.
Yeah, very much so. So like you could feel in the air there that something was coming, because all of my friends' dads were really quiet and really busy, and they were all working on something big, And so if you didn't get a really good degree and then move into IBM or whatever, then you just work at the gas station place, which is where I worked. Mm-hmm. I would work at places like that. And I just kind of did blue collar stuff. And I just never thought that I could have a higher up job because I just did so miserably in school. Sure. And so it never crossed my mind. There was no internet, there was no social media, there was no culture, there was no different groups I could get connected with. So I just thought that was life. So in 2004, my life started to really kind of get bad. My marriage at the time was falling apart, and I was not doing well, like morally and spiritually. I was working at a gym, and I had two friends that aggressively confronted me, almost like like those drug shows, or the interventions or whatever. And they're like, look, you got to get out of here and you got to start focusing on something positive for yourself. And I'm like, well, then what do I do? Like this is the best blue collar job I could get at this gym,
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know, start an internet business. Like I didn't even have email at the time. I was just very anti-internet. And, really? And I'm like, an internet business. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. That looks like something that'll be around,
Well, the internet wasn't even out barely, right? Or just
it was in 2004. It was there. Everybody had emails, like flip phones, a little bit, but there was blogs and stuff, but it wasn't like it was now, And it was also like, it was off to the side. It was weirdo, It wasn't accepted at all. And so, but there was little forums. RC Groups was around, and so I said, well, what would I do a business on? They're like, I don't know, you like RC airplanes. Why don't you do it on RC airplanes? And I'm just like, they're just like a light bulb out of the sky. I'm like, that's a great idea. And my friend Nick, he's like, wait, don't. He's like, slow down. Like, said, he literally told me in 2004, he's like, so I don't know how old the book is. He's like, you've got to read the book E-Myth first before you get into it. I'm like, yeah, I'll read the book. And then I just dove in to business. And he was like, he kind of felt responsible because he kind of like changed my life. So now I'm jumping in, selling everything I own and quitting my job and just going right now. And so then as I got into the business of RC, I went onto RC groups and I started working on the kits and, met Steve Shoemate, those guys there.
Mm-hmm.
And as
Which, to give people some background, I don't think they know that you run RC Powers.
I did, yeah.
You did?
2004 to 2017, yeah.
That's an RC aircraft building and forum kind of place.
Right. Yeah, it was a decent online business for a number of years. And but as it grew, it started to fall apart just out of the text of E-Myth. And it I couldn't work fast enough and orders were coming in more than I could handle. It was just a classic. So then I was like, what was that book that Nick said? And I went back and then I started to read it and I was like, oh my gosh. And then realized that I was like all the way towards the end of the book, like doing everything wrong, like
chapter
after
you waited
chapter.
till you
Interesting.
You waited till you failed. You waited till you failed.
Oh
and
yeah, totally. Then I went and read it. Yeah.
For some more background, I used to build RC planes. That's how I met Dave. 2011 or 12 is when I started building the planes because I always loved airplanes growing up, and so I just somehow found it on the internet and started building planes. I probably built like 50 of them. I was actually one of the top guys on the forum, not the top, and I was really into it. And I even got Spencer to.
You did.
Got a lot of my friends to build.
A MiG-29.
Yeah.
And then how I met Dave or talked to you for the first time was I think 2015, I had started getting into the idea of like being an entrepreneur or like self-help, just started to like taste some of that, like maybe that's what I want to do. And my family was also business owners. And so I kind of like knew I wanted to do business, but anyway, and then I started listening to like online people like Gary V, Ty Lopez, and they were saying, oh, you should get a mentor. And so I was talking to Dave a little bit or something on the forum or like YouTube. And I just said, would it be all right if I emailed you? And then you ended up calling and that's how I met you.
Right. Yeah. I remember when you did a series on the forum, you had a bunch of videos. It was you and your brothers and sisters and friends, and you were young. You were like probably like 19 at the time. And I remember the time when I first saw you.
I was 15 actually.
Was it really? Wow. I remember telling Shan like, wow, that kid is really good. And then you were gone. You were gone for a couple of years. Like you went off and did something else. And then when you came back, then I jumped on it and I was like, hey, how's it going? And I think I reached out to you or something to that effect. But you stood out in the group, and I did remember you at the time. So it was great to then have a friendship with you and then talk about business rather than just planes.
Yeah, well, that's what I talked to you about was business. On the email I said, I just mentioned I'm reading business books, and I didn't know if you were into business. I just knew you were the RC guy. Right. And then you said, oh yeah, I've been I'm interested in business as well. And
as of yesterday.
Yeah. So wow. So anyway, you after that, so the business started falling apart basically, and then you went back and read the email and then was the 4-hour work week in there as well sometime? Yeah,
that was that one came out.
Tactics, right?
Yeah, that one came out later, and I followed in the early days Gary Vaynerchuk, Kevin Rose, and Tim Ferriss. They were like 3 original guys back in the early days, back when I was on in 2004 and 5. Gary V, I think, came in around 2006, and I remember watching his wine shows when he was just doing the daily wine shows. Because there was nobody, something like that. Yeah, and so because there was nobody else doing a on-purpose social media show. Everything on the internet, video-wise, was cat videos. They were all VHS home videos that people had in their archives, and they were just transferring them to digital and then uploading them. Nobody was pulling a Phil DeFranco and doing a video just for the internet. And so there was Lonely Girl 15 or whatever. There's a bunch of like, whoa, people are like making shows. It was a weird, oh, this guy's got like a wine TV show. Wow, no kidding, So no one thought of it at the time, So I had followed Kevin Rose and Gary Vaynerchuk and Tim Ferriss, and so by the time Tim Ferriss, I think he really kind of launched himself with the 4-Hour Workweek book. So I was early on watching that one, and quickly saw that it was a lot of the same principles as E-Myth. It was just that he was leveraging all of the new digital tools, you know,
Yeah.
because the
For
E-Myth
the
is
modern age.
yeah, exactly. E-Myth is all 1980s kind of guy for a larger, big corporate business. And Tim Ferriss is like, hey, you can hire people for that. And now today with, you know, just before the call, we had Amazon deliver our groceries, you know, so that cuts down a lot of time. That's a lot
Yeah,
of time saved, you
that's
know,
right.
not only time saved, but energy saved. When you come home, you realize, why am I so frustrated or exhausted or tired? It's like, oh, well, you got in that conversation with that old lady at the checkout station. You realize how much it drains you, you know, or whatever it is.
Huh.
Which
So
that's interesting that you save time and energy, because we usually think of time, but there's so many factors for both. Interesting, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of
So,
different things to track, right?
so yeah, so you mentioned that you just got your groceries delivered with Amazon today. So that's crazy. So that's kind of the whole, the overarching like principles from these books is this idea of systems.
Yeah,
And so what are systems, or why do you know, need systems? Why
I
are they
know.
important? And, what are some of the systems that you have in your personal and business life?
Right. So here's why E-Myth goes over everybody's head, including my own head for the first however many years, is that when you're starting off as an entrepreneur, it's all about proving yourself. It's all about, it's now your time to show your parents and your friends that you are somebody. And so the idea of paying other people to do your task and then manage them
See, it was
is
ridiculous, because then
it
you look
defeats,
like a crazy person.
right. It defeats the purpose. No, like, I'm here to start this business. I'm going to put my name on the business because I'm the
Yeah.
hero. I'm here to prove
I
myself.
am the business.
Yes, yes. And I really encourage people to not resist it. Like, I was very fortunate that I jumped in feet first in my late 20s because I had 10 years to make a mess, and it's okay because I'm still in my 30s. Or, you know, now I'm 41. So like the faster you can just jump in and let that energy flow, the better, because it'll
Okay.
work itself out over time. So
Yep.
like for me, it wasn't until I had the 10 years of ground down and just worn out. Like, I have to go through everything that E-Myth was warning about. I'm exhausted, adrenal burnout. I've, you know, tax debt, just every worst case scenario, divorced, just every worst case scenario finally happens. And then it was an identity shift of like, I don't want to be the hero anymore. I don't want to be the business anymore. I want the next generation to be the business. I want to actually pass this on, and I want to see other young people have jobs, and I want to see the customers taken care of while I'm on vacation, you know, so I'm not sitting there in bed emailing them and stuff. I want to actually do this right by the, so it's kind of a shift of like, rather than I'm here for myself, it's now that I'm dead, I want to now actually give this to others for real.
Yeah.
They can come by a team and systems. And so it's like, oh, you have to write it in stone. Because if it's just coming out of my dreamy head, if I'm not around, it just disappears. But if I can actually get it down in stone and transfer it to other people, then it can reproduce itself. It can live on. So it wasn't until I had that internal identity shift that then all of a sudden the book that's so simple makes sense.
So it was
You know?
kind of by necessity you found it out
Oh yeah.
versus like applying it early on, which, do you think things could have been different if you started applying it when you're in that phase where you're like, there's no way I'm going to use any system yet?
I think Tim Ferriss himself could come over and mentor me for 6 months, and the day he walked out the door, I would just destroy it all. You know?
Mm. 'Cause it's such a different, it's a whole like mindset that's totally
Yeah.
different. I did the same thing, which I've realized recently that, yeah, a lot of things I've done as far as making a business is like, yeah, proving to people and saying, oh, I'm the business owner, you know, and people do that with their, you know, like lots of businesses, local businesses will have the owner's name on the business, and it's nothing wrong with that, I guess, you know, that's how it generally works. But like, it's like, do you want to grow bigger than that, or do you just want to stay there your whole life at that one
Right.
level? And so what you're saying exactly is what I've learned from you actually, and the books, because you recommended that I read these two books. They were like one of the first books I read, is the E-Myth
Yeah.
4-Hour Work Week. And
I told you, like,
I s-
don't call me until you read these.
yeah, I did read them, and I did start to slowly understand, and I'm still just like barely scratching the surface of it.
Right.
But the idea that I don't want to do things myself, not because I'm lazy, or like, not like I don't want to work in the business. No, but like long term, I want to train other people. I want to, like, the goal is to have it scalable and like working on its own, right?
Right.
Or like, it's like what's the end goal? And anyway, like systems are the best way to get there, right?
Right.
So, like,
Totally. Totally. It really is. Like, it's it's a scalable machine. Like we'll enjoy going out to eat and looking at the difference of like a scalable restaurant versus a non-scalable restaurant. And when you see the menus that are laid out, you can tell that okay, they have a few of these restaurants in town. And then you go visit the place where it's like it's a one-man Johnny, and they forget the weirdest things. Like they just don't realize that they should do a sign, or they should have a menu, or in their chairs. Like something's in their blind spot, but it's just them, so they can't see it. You can really see the difference, And you're like, wow, for this to really live on, it's all got to be taken care of. You got to cover all the bases, and only a machine and a team can do that, because your brain is just so you're really good at whatever it is that you do, which means whatever you're focusing on, all this over here is not getting done. And it's realizing that game and going, okay, there's no way I can beat that, because you can't run around the circle fast enough. And
we can't really multitask, even though we think we can.
Right.
So focusing on one thing that's the right thing to focus on, rather than the mundane thing that someone else could be doing for you.
Right.
Yeah. So how did you then implement these systems in your personal life, or
right?
This is kind of separate.
Well, give us an example of a system that works really well for you.
So what finally got traction for me, by the way, and I can't emphasize to any kids out there, like you're listening to a guy that's been working on this every day around the clock for 15 years, and I'm finally starting to get it as of the last few years. So if you've been in it for 7 years and you're exhausted, you're going nowhere, you're ahead of where I was. Like,
wow.
For me to systematize stuff, I had to, because I was just so stubborn, I had to really own it on the smaller things. So like when I was able to systematize dishes, that's when I started to see how I could then work my way up to a systematized parts of the business. Because systematizing a business or aspects of the business, like say the YouTube videos we do, like that's one heck of an assembly line of like show writing, rough draft, recording the audio, planning out the visuals, doing a Google Doc and the schedule. Like there's a long assembly line when we create YouTube videos. It's not one video, it's all these different segment parts, and they all have their own Google Doc, and they all have their own little system. And that took a lot of years to know how to systematically build something like that. But it started with something day to day with the dishes that was like an annoyance in real life, that I had to figure out how to take this annoying, reoccurring, just like a bee in your face that won't go away. How can I break this down? And then like, when you go when you go to camp and they're like, all right, put all your stuff away. And like there's like a reverse assembly line where you put all the forks here. Everybody puts their forks here. They put their spoons here. They put their cups here. They put their plates there. Then they all walk out. It was like something like that. So we literally took the dishwasher out of the house, threw it on the street, and the recycle guy came and took it. And then, and then where the dishes were, we put shelves with just little plastic Tupperwares, and like one for the forks, one for the spoons, one for the cups. And then you had to get rid of, like Tim Ferriss talks about, like eliminate, delegate, or eliminate, automate, delegate. Yeah. Eliminate, automate, delegate. So it's like the elimination is like, you got to get rid of your Spider-Man cups, because they're all different sizes and they don't stack into each other, and covered is all.
Yeah. We have so many like random like silverware cups, plates. They're just all different sizes. That like
right. So we had to throw away most of our dishes because they're collected from, just old friends or family or hand-me-downs from your parents, or just random things you've collected, as a young person after you inherit all this junk.
So you have to make it work with you rather than you work for it.
Yeah, so we had to throw it all away and spend a massive amount of money, like buying cups. All these, it was like the Batman where he was like getting his mask, and they're like, oh, there was a defect in the graphite, and they smash it and it breaks. And they're like, well, maybe the next 10,000 will work, and they had to like order them all over again. It's like, oh, these cups don't work. Throw them away, because they look whatever. Like you get the idea. So it's like getting this all systematized to where the point is like the system needs to be working for us, not us working for the system. Because if you don't take care of dishes, what happens is it puts we call a gun to your head, where all of a sudden it reaches a tipping point on Saturday afternoon. The dishes have now taken over the kitchen. And here's the time a client's coming over, and you're like, oh my gosh, they're coming over in 20 minutes and I have an hour and a half worth of dishes to do. I'm stuck. And that kind of stuff is happening in your dishes, your laundry, your health, your washing machine, your editing department, the oil in your car. So each one of these is on a timer. So if you can track how long it's been, it's like I've had a refrigerator problem once a year, every year. Now that I'm older, I can see that. I have this problem once a month, every month. And now I'm older, I can see that. I have a dishes problem once a week, you know?
And
And
some
all
are
those
more
things,
intense than others too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And some
and
are
they
more
add
frequent.
up.
Right.
Like they
Oh,
add
yeah.
up over time to where all these little things we don't realize, like just doing dishes, like that's not a big deal. Well,
Right.
even if you do the dishes, as you make them here and there a little bit at a time, all that time is adding up over time.
Yeah.
And like you've said, all these little things we don't realize take up so much of our life.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah.
Totally. And I knew like one thing that really stuck with me is like growing up, the people around me were very World War II. Like all of the people in the neighborhood were these old, like cranky SJ, ISTJ, ESTJ type, by the book military style, telling stories about the war. And the whole mentality back then is like, you don't get to go play until you're done with your homework. You don't get dessert until you're done with your vegetables. Like this mentality was like part of growing up. And so like, I knew that I could not systematize a business if I couldn't systematize my personal life. Like I just knew that to be true. And I would not allow myself to go on and systematize a larger thing when my personal life was still a wreck. So I attacked the personal stuff, which was smaller, a lot easier, so I could learn the principles, as well as I didn't care as much. Because if I failed at systematizing the dishes, which I did, who cares?
You failed at systematizing the dishes?
Yeah, it takes a few tries, It takes a few tries. And so, but like, it's better than like, okay, I'm going to systematize this thing for my business and I have all these customers. And then that fails. Like, oh, I can't afford to learn these lessons way up here. I got to learn these lessons down here,
Yeah. Well,
so what's the final iteration? How I'm still curious about these dishes. How do you do it now?
Now it's it's evolved to where we have our meals. So we had to then integrate meal prep and planning, and that evolved as Amazon came online. Because what we used to do is we used to cook food by the month. So we would have like soup for several months and then meat for a couple months, and we would just cook them in these batches and store them. So it's like the military. We just pull these ready to eat meals out, eat them, stack the dishes where they go, and then once a week and whenever we had time, we would clean them out on our time. Over time, we've been able to make that a little bit better to where like our meals are very regimented, very predictable. And literally the way Shani and I do it now is like one of us will be cooking and then we rotate around and one is eating while the other is cleaning. And like, so like we're eating, we're
great.
eating like as a team, very efficient. And we don't even need to really dip into our dishes shelves all that much because we're able to just kind of clean them up so fast. But the thing is like some days you can clean dishes. Some days you can clean them, you're done eating, you can clean them right off because you've got that time. Some days you don't. Sometimes you gotta go. Where do you put it? You put it down in the holding bay because eventually you'll have time where you have free time. And now you can pull them all out on your time and do the dishes on your time.
You would let the dirty dishes stack up so then you pick the time when you do them kind of thing?
Right, exactly.
Where you do it in bulk. And to the point of how hard it is to do some of these simple things. Like I realized, like I've been realizing as I've been trying to just like keep my room clean, how hard it is for me to just keep my room clean or just like do these basic. Now for some people it's easier, but like I'm the worst at organizing. And so like it's hard work to just get some of these simple things down first. And like, I don't know, like Peterson talks about it where, get your room cleaned up first before you try to tackle bigger projects.
Right.
Yeah. But I remember when I was visiting you guys last summer, just showing the example of what you guys do. Like when I was there, a package came in the mail. It was flashlights. And so apparently you guys needed a flashlight, but you didn't just buy one flashlight. You bought 10. You bought 10 flashlights. Yeah.
10 flashlights.
Or like at least 10 little packs like that.
It gets better. It gets better. So, because the fact that like your system, one of the systems you do is when you need something that you'll be using over and over again, or it could get lost, or you'll buy it in bulk, right?
Right.
But like, so they came in 10 small flashlights, and then you tried them, and it was like this weird thing with the buttons where you had to click it like 3 or 4 times, and it was like all these different flashing modes.
Too many moving parts. And
then you were like, oh wait, these are too complicated. They take up too much energy in our brain, so we're gonna throw them all away and buy new ones. Like, and I think I took them. But like, and it sounds really extreme, but I guess like just because like it took too much work to operate them.
Right.
You want ones that just had like one button click.
Right.
And
Right.
so that's like an example of what you
Yeah,
guys.
because we're constantly looking at we're constantly the math is looking at how do I win for the year, not the day, not the moment, not myself, but for the team for the year. So when we have me, Shani, and then Cody, who's an 8-year-old, and we go on walks at night, and it gets dark here early in the wintertime. And so we have just a stack of flashlights by the door because you're going to lose them all the time. So you got to have tons of them. And you have an 8-year-old, and then you have me, who's a fumbly idiot, and then you have Shani, who gets mad or whatever. And so like you have these extra steps of like press 3 for SOS and 4 times to do My Little Pony. Like, dude, stop. I just need, I got a car coming. I need to be like on, and that's it. And like, you'll have these teensy frustrations that'll happen. And as those are happening per person every once in a while, that adds up to a significant amount of time and frustration at the end of the year. And if you can take that off your table and your competition is not, you're slowly inching ahead.
So it's those little things like buying the groceries, for example. You have those delivered to you, so you don't need to spend time going groceries. Like the other thing was, and you had gas cans. So you said that you don't go to gas stations to buy it when your car runs empty.
I go to the gas station twice a year.
Twice a year.
You stock up on gas and put it in your shed. That way you just refill at the house to save time.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds extreme. Like it sounds like most people. It's like. Go ahead, Spencer.
I can see how this works because, like in the E-Myth, they talk. Gerber talks about how you want to work more on your business than in it.
Right.
And if you have a system, then you let the system do the work the system needs to do on the in part.
Right.
And then you're working on the bigger challenges. I mean,
right.
How it is.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So it's like you've eliminated all these other mundane tasks so that you can only focus on the most important things in your life, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because, as the business owner, it's like I couldn't have seen a better example of this one thing that Darren Brown did where he did a trick of where he played chess against 9 chess masters. So he put these 9 different tables in a circle and had these different chess guys. And then he was in the center and he was playing chess against all of them. And then he beat them like 5-4. You know, he beat 5 of them, but 4 of them or whatever. And like the way he was doing it is like the chess guy who was at the position, like the 12 o'clock position, he was actually playing the guy at the 6 o'clock position. Darren was just memorizing his moves. And then as he got around the table, he would play against, so these 2 guys were playing against each other through Darren. Like that was the trick. But like the visual was so funny because the camera was overhead and you see all these chess masters in a circle, like all ready to fight. And here's Darren just going around beating half of them and he was winning. And it's like, that's like the picture. It's like I'm down here editing and now I'm up in the attic taking care of the thing, and then now I'm out in the yard getting the mail, and then now I'm in the backyard taking care of that other thing, and now I'm on the phone with this person. It's like, and as a business owner, you got to move. You got to be moving about every hour. You got to rotate because, you know, if I'm down here too long in this dungeon, there's something burning down upstairs. There's some kind of problem. There's something that needs to be addressed, and if I don't get on that or I'm not paying attention to that, that starts to build up and pile up. So every single thing that when I run to this station, like, look, I only got 20 minutes. So dishes, we got to do this fast, clean, and you can't scratch me up when I do this because I got to get to the next one fresh. So every little single item has been greatly consciously looked through and systematized so you can get through them quickly. And therefore, as we hire people, it's a lot easier for them to get the gas or the groceries or the laundry or whatever because everything's been all streamlined down. It's not all bulky.
So when you work on the system, you're doing the unpredictable things, but when you're working in it, you're often doing the mundane, everyday, what someone else could be doing, which is the trap we get into, thinking we need to be the guy who's in and on at the same time.
Right.
But there's really, you can't do both because when as a business owner can you succeed just doing the one little thing in the business every day when there's bigger things to worry about?
Right. Another thing that's helped me was Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of using that using it not literally, but kind of as an analogy of like the bulk of the pyramid is, or the majority of the guys I'm playing chess against are going to be very day-to-day mundane kind of things, you know, answering emails, you know, doing the videos, whatever stuff that just a day in, day out. We call it lever pulling. You know, you just got to sit there and pull a lever. You got to do this technician stuff. And then very little of it at the top is going to be forward moving stuff. Like I have a list on my whiteboard up here that I plan to do this next month of like going through our website, redesigning our website, updating a bunch of pages, you know, taking the product itself and basically like we did with the RC planes, going from like a version 2 to a version 3 and just updating the whole thing. And that's going to take a lot of quiet time and concentration and focus and experimentation and days where you build something and it doesn't work. That's okay. You got to come back. So you got to have everything else covered, because I can't go deal with a flooding basement in the middle of that. I need to make sure all those low-rented things are secure.
So you just talked about all these things that are in your personal life, but you have like probably hundreds more examples in your business. And if someone could do this in their business, it would just revolutionize like everything. Because I grew up in a family business, and my family parents, like, they would always just be running from one fire to the next every day, fixing every little problem that came up. And they said, oh, I need to step back and I need to put, I'm just too busy. And it's just hard, for anybody. But it's like you spend all your time on these little things that come up when instead you could put systems in place. But I guess the question I was going to ask is, how do you actually start putting systems in place? Because when you first start a business, when you first start something, you don't even have anything to organize, or like, so how do you get started like making a system?
Yeah. For me, what I had to do is I unfortunately went the hard way with the E-Myth guy kind of describes. And that is like, I had to take a couple of years off. Like we had the RC business and it was such a mess that we vowed to systematize it. And we did. We poured a lot of money into that business at the end that we never got back. And it was more to teach ourselves a lesson that we were learning how to systematize planes and do bylaws and emails, all stuff I'm going to have to learn in my next business anyways. So why not learn it in this small little practice arena? So we had some money saved from the RC business, and we spent every last dollar and took a couple of years off from life. And like, I was talking to Jariah a little bit on the time, but like, we just started our personality business last year. It's literally 1 year old. So I've been a real business owner for only 12 months.
Really?
I've been a fake business owner since 2004, just all over the place, pulling my hair out. But like, we didn't start our real business until last January, which is let me define those terms. A business built upon systems, foundation, teamwork, your clearly defined roles, goals, a clock that we go by, you know what I mean? Like an actual business. But before then it was just taking a lot of time off of diving in, of clearing away as much as we could. So we got the RC business down, minimized as much as we could, got the stuff in our life, minimized as much as we could. And where do we start? We started with the lowest, simplest thing first, and for me, it was dishes. It was things like that and then we spent a long time on that. It was probably 2 years until we had dishes to a point where like, okay, it's a trusted system that the team sees as a positive thing to stand on. It took a long time. Like we didn't know what we were doing. I'm not gonna do it a lot. I come over to your house and do it in a day now, but like we didn't know how to do it. Like, so how would I know how to
dishes? I mean, there's so much more to the business than dishes, but you got to start somewhere.
I know, right? And it's like, it's so true of like the World War II guys, or like in the Bible it says like the story is always told that David killed Goliath, like this lucky shot, gifted from God, like sailed it right in. But like you read a couple lines back, it's like David said, it's literally in the Bible. He's like, I beat the lion and the bear. I have the confidence that I can take this giant out. And it's like it's that principle is so true of like, if you can't deal with the dishes and the lower ended stuff, you're not going to be able to take care of the higher ended stuff.
It's being faithful to little things, right?
Yes. And that's like kids today, they're like, where do I start? And they're like, you have no idea if I could like come to your house or go back in time. Like, look, you're a little kid with almost nothing. You want to set up a practice business. Like for me, it was RC. I knew I didn't want to stay in that forever. So I use it as a practice business. I use it as long as I could. Set up a practice business, even if that business is just the business of cleaning your dishes or your room, or you're taking care of your mom's car, just something fake that you don't really care about. You're not motivated about, you don't like, because you want to learn how to work these tools, wax on, wax off, so you can get good at karate someday. And then from there, as you learn those skills, they get beat up by the laundry and the dishes or your lawnmower, and you see how hard it is to systematize. Once you conquer that, you're like, okay, now I think I could sell some junk on eBay. And then from there, they'll level you up from there,
Which is, okay, so that is a very interesting point, that when you start at the very small detail level, and then you can make a jump that you think eBay, how do you get there from the lawnmower? But it's the thought pattern that's the really important part. So I can see that being really true.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I like that. How about we jump to the 4-Hour Work Week before we get too deep in E-Myth? That's a fun book, but
Yeah.
I like how you separated them by E-Myth as your identity and 4-Hour Work Week is the tactics.
Yeah.
I do have a tactics question for you. One point that the book brings up in the 4-Hour Work Week is that success is directly driven by the number of uncomfortable conversations you have. And that would be for like how you network.
Wow.
And I wondered, in your experience, is that true? The uncomfortable conversations you've had, have they been some of the biggest difference makers for you? Or has it been the relationships you've been more comfortable with that you've developed over the years?
Yeah, like talking about uncomfortable, like with Shannon and I, you know, my girl and my business partner, like it has been nothing but extremely uncomfortable starting these foundations, because like doing the dishes, or you know, a dishes system with your spouse, for example, like those are not fun conversations, or how to systematize emails, or how to systematize video editing, or any of that stuff. Like that's why you avoid them, because
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable. You just want it to end, and the other person is doing it wrong, and you don't want to confront them on it. But then they say you're doing it wrong, and now you're having a fight. Like it has been, it took, because she also had her business in her early 20s while I was doing the RC thing. She was doing wedding photography, and so she had about a 9-year run, you know, building pies by hand, spinning them all in her fingers, doing wedding photography all by herself. Too. So both of us had gotten to that breaking point to where we knew that these uncomfortable conversations were key to building the foundations. And we passed that on to our customers now in our real business. Because like one thing we did in the RC business and her in the photography business is she called it XOXO, where she's signing all of her emails like loves and kisses. And the RC business, I played this very nice guy, which I'm not this super nice guy all the time in real life. I've got an aggressive, you know, screw you side. And so when we started the next business, we talked a lot about this, a lot of like, look, we want to be able to tell our customers, F you, like you're being a jackass. And we want to be able to confront the negativity on the front end. And we've done that consciously. And it's been one of the greatest rewards we've ever had, because like we scare away a lot of people, sure. But like the people that come to us, we went to a meetup in Seattle last weekend. And I'm just sitting there with this group of people that have met us online, just going, wow, I love, like, these people are like our friends. Like when
They're
when
like
Shannon
honest and real with you, because you're that way in both directions.
Yes. They're like family. You know, I want them at our wedding someday. Like these people. And it's like, but they got through all the negativity. Like if you go to our website now, it's like nothing but like disclaimers and screw you and go away and this isn't for you, and make it very hard and confusing to work and frustrating. Like go away. And then those that get it and come through, like you have the negativity on the front end, and therefore you can have all the positivity on the back end. If you don't do it that way, that negativity is always, I see this on like bloggers and stuff, or video people, where they'll show their behind the scenes of their staff. And I'm like, ooh, that lady you have right there working for you, I know that character. She's like, well, if you didn't say it that way, and we all know, like, oh, you guys have a lot of negativity that hasn't come to the surface yet, and everybody's kind of dancing around it. And
so you might as well confront it right away, I guess, is what your strategy is.
Yeah, because the more you don't confront it, then when you finally have that confrontation, it's
like
then
a nuclear bomb went off.
It's a nuclear bomb, and then it's all over. The relationships usually don't make it through that.
So all these little things, working through the systems, or just, I guess in general in relationships, figuring things out. A lot of people will say, let's not argue for the sake of the relationship. Let's not have an uncomfortable conversation, right? Like, but you have to, right, to figure things out. Or
yeah, man. One thing, like, this is crazy, but like, this is one thing that Shani and I talked about, because we had both had businesses before. We had both had marriages before. So we were like PhDs in how to fail. Right. And so that's why we're not married yet. Because we're like, we got married way too young, and now we're getting married way too old. We want to take things nice and slow. And like, so hear this in context, everybody. And like, you know, look at me as a person and like, hear what I'm saying in context. We never let our relationship get in the way of the business. And what I mean by that is, back by the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you take away your ability to eat and sleep and shower, your animal gets so threatened that it will start attacking your loved ones around you. So if the family, if the friends, and what I mean by that is like, come to my birthday, that wasn't enough, you need to leave the business to come make me feel good. You know how your family, your grandma can do that kind of stuff. Like it creates a manipulation thing to where you get the family and the friends, or the family, friends, and business kind of at war with each other. And for here, we've really learned it's like, look, we don't have a prove ourselves to our business anymore. It's now a thing that needs to get done. We got to get in, get the job done, get it over with, and then we can get to the higher priority on the pyramid, which is the family and the love and the giving. But being able to eat and sleep and pay your bills as an animal has got to come first. Then we can take care of these higher end things like relationships. So it's a lot of like when you work at an office place, you have that boss that is playing that role for you, who's putting that aggressive structure of like, get your job done without excuses. I don't care what your grandma says, And so you got to put that structure on yourselves to like, I want to spend time with my family. Therefore, I've got to get this done. I got to take these problems and minimize them and get them out of the way so I can get to the thing that I really care about,
So it gives you that separation of work and life that you don't naturally have, because work is life for you sort of, but trying to find a way to keep them separate, even though it's in the same house, which is tricky.
Yeah, it is. It's really.
It's like starting from the ground up. It's really, it sounds extreme. It's, it's like self-help to the extreme, where I think a level that most people wouldn't be willing to go to, or just, it's like a lot of questions you have to ask yourself, like, what is the most important thing, I guess? And you see like a lot of conflicts in your life, like, hey, people want you to say, oh, you're spending too much time here, you're being unbalanced. But it's like, you first got to get sometimes you have to be unbalanced for a while, right? Before you can be balanced.
Yeah. And clearly defining priorities and roles. Like, this is where, like, in a business, like, it all of a sudden makes sense why they write out mission statements and job descriptions and priorities. And so this was something that we still talk about this, to this day, of like really talking about our mission statements, our priorities. What do we do when Cody wants to have a birthday party with his friends and we got some business deadlines? And so we're constantly looking at, like, how do we navigate through those things? What are our priorities? How do we want to consciously set them up? And most of all, like, strategically, what is the correct way to get something done so we can maximize and get more? Is it more efficient to put off this work project now and then go do all this kind of fun stuff that we'll then have to pay for that later and therefore lose more family time next month? Or is it better if we get the work done so we can all go play together? You know what I mean? And so a lot of it.
What about the thing you hear, it says, like, you got to enjoy your life while you're young, or especially if you're a kid, you got to, you only have so much time, whatever, you got to enjoy time and
but you play catch up then after that, because you haven't been getting good at things.
Yeah, that's what happened to us. We enjoyed way too much time and it all fell apart on the back end. So, yeah.
So people who, and I remember one of our early conversations, you said the kids that go and party and have all this fun now, they're going to pay for it with pain later. And I've seen that in so many people, they have all this fun now. And this is kind of off topic of the book, but you like, if for every amount of pain that you experience, or like that law of, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you experience a whole bunch of pleasure and fun and just, like, give into your flesh or whatever, now you're going to have all this pain paying for it later. So it's better to do the pain now, so it, like, pays off. And that's kind of what you guys have in your business and life. And it's crazy, but.
Yeah, it's hard because you don't have a boss, but you still need the accountability. Otherwise, you're going to constantly go do what you want to do. And then that's going to be great on the short term, but you're going to cause problems for yourself on the back end. So it's like setting clearer goals and clear rules. Okay, we're off at this time. We're going to get this much work done. That's another hard one. It's like, we're going to get this much work done per week by Friday. And it's Thursday afternoon, and I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos. I've been slacking off. It's like, okay, I'm not meeting my deadlines. I've got to meet those so I can get these next things done. So putting that pressure on yourself, it's very hard. It's very hard to keep that kind of accountability just out of nowhere,
Yeah.
I still don't, like, sometimes I'll get up late, or I'll just have all these things because nobody's forcing me to do it. Nobody's forcing me to have a schedule in my work. It makes it so hard to do it.
Accountability, like, even just having someone that is a friend or someone who just that keeps you moving when you're not, or getting you up when you should be. Like, I know, like, even for me, my accountability is my clock on my phone auto wakes me up every weekday versus me setting it. Because if I were to set it every day, I would always set it as late as I possibly could,
Yeah.
But I
And
set
that's
it earlier so that I get ahead and start, hitting the morning with the right stride.
Right.
It's an example of a
Really
system,
good.
right? Where you set it
Yeah,
up where
that is a
auto
system.
alarm.
Right.
Wow. And in
Yeah.
that point, like in our podcast here that we've been doing for consistently now for a year and a half. And I wouldn't have done it myself if Spencer wasn't, some like, in a sense, not forcing because I want to do it, but, keeping me, that's an example of what a system does, I guess, right? It keeps you doing the same thing consistently, or it keeps things organized, right?
Right.
Like, because if you don't organize, it's like chaos.
Right.
And so systems with chaos, like that would be our notifications world now. If you think about it, you're always on emails, you're on Twitter, you're on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. And one of the things this book talks about is keeping a selectively ignorant news diet.
Yeah.
I wondered with your systems, if you have one of those, like, is there a certain way that you keep yourself focused on the work you're doing versus getting distracted on those kind of low energy outlets that you could be doing, or how do you handle that?
Yeah. So that's been a big thing for me and Shannon, literally this past, I'd say even the past couple months, especially even the past month, this past week, it's been a big priority for us of kind of doing an updated version on exactly that. And so
you had a previous rev already.
Yeah. But we've also we'll do good for a while and then do bad and then do good, then bad, So like now what is working more for us is like, and it's so ridiculous to see of like what works is what worked 100 years ago. Like we're setting up for ourselves a life that is like, it is, it's like our schedule now is exactly the same schedule I had when I was in 7th grade. I start
Really?
work at about the same time, 7 or 8 in the morning. And then I do my first work block, we call it, for an hour. And so I will open up something like for example, we create these classes for our members area that go up every Tuesday, and we film them. So we got to do one of these per week, but we film them 2 at a time. And then we film 2 at a time every 3 weeks. So at the end of each month, we're like have a 25% surplus so we can rotate other things we got to record. And so like just finding the content that we're going to talk about is like the first little thing that I'll do. Yep. And then just for that period in the morning, and then I put it away. And then, so that's like show prep period 1 from 8 to 9 in the morning.
All over again.
Yes. And then I put it away. All you want to do is work on it all day until it's done. You can't do that. You can't do that because now all these other things are building up. So it's like every day I have to work on it just an hour, and I can't wait till the day before because there's too many. It's like icebergs that have to defrost. You might so you need time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like if you were to pull out the first thing and then get distracted by everything else and put the first thing away, you'd never get that one thing done well. So if you pulled out everything individually and said, hey, I'm turning off the noise outside for an hour, I'm working on this one thing, then you recalibrate later so that you figure out what has the world been doing, what do I need to be on next.
Right. I only go about an hour, then I'm watching YouTube videos because I got 10 minutes before I go to the next class. So I goof off as long as I can. And then, okay, now it's 9 o'clock or whatever, I got to get back to the next thing. And I force myself to just get through an hour of work and then a recess, and then an hour of work and then recess. And that's been working much better.
Sounds like the Pomodoro technique a little bit.
The what?
Pomodoro technique. There's like a Pomodoro timer that these people use for 30-minute trainings or 45-minute trainings. And then you let the timer go, and then you work only on that thing for that until the timer's up.
Right.
Then you get a break, then you go back to it. Same concept.
Right. Yeah. Same idea. Yeah. Because we feel like what we're learning in psychology and stuff. You have 4 major. This may not be literal, but there's 4 different people inside of you, or 4 different animals, and you got to take each of these dogs for a walk. And if you don't. Including the one that wants to screw around. If you don't do that, then what happens? Because if you're tracking it long enough, or you're just old enough to finally see yourself, you're like, wow, consistently my whole life, at about every 2-week period, I will just stay up all night and watch movies and then sleep in all the next day. And without a choice, my body will just shut itself off.
So you just let that dog walk now, huh?
I take it in little walks, so I get these little, so I'm not getting the buildup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so like
See,
it's
why is that good versus like completely secluding that dog off so that you never see it again?
good
Like
luck. Good
I know
luck.
that's the challenge because that's
Yeah.
why we give up on like New Year's resolutions.
Right.
So
I
yeah, I
fight
guess
dirty,
so
man. I fight dirty.
you said little walks.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Yeah. Little and consistent. Little and consistent. So if you get distracted with watching YouTube videos or whatever every day from doing work, own it. Just figure out how to mathematically kind of systematize that. So rather than having these guilty swings, be like, track your time. Like, all right, I do about 3 or 4 hours too much of goofing around. All right, let me take that and break it up. So I'm going to leave that alone. That's the non-movable for now. I'm going to just spread that out throughout the day and get myself to work 20 minutes, break 20 minutes, or whatever that ratio is for you. Then from there, once you can get that damage control down, you now then gain consistency, because literally getting 2 hours worth of work done of pure productivity, and then the other 16 hours you're just goofing around. If you get those 2 hours done consistently for 30 days in a row, that is an uptrend. Because what everybody else does is you goof off, and then all of a sudden 1 or 2 days a week you work for 10 hours, 12 hours straight, and then you practice. Like, you can't. These little consistent
that's not
things
sustainable.
Right.
Like, I was asking you a question at one point, like, so, I feel like I'm, lazy sometimes, or I'm distracted by every little thing, YouTube, everything.
Yeah.
And, and then you were saying, well, you know what, that's probably true, but, look at what you've done so far in your business over the past, couple of years. As long as you're consistent, even if you're not even if you're lazy and you mess up, like, if you're consistent a little bit at a time over a long period of time, it adds up, and like totally adds up. And well, you said it, how your systems are becoming like it was 100 years ago, or like, I almost feel like some of these problems, like that you're having, in order to have, like, to be efficient, you have to put all these systems in. It's like partly a result of like all the technology that's available. Like 100 years ago, they didn't have all these distractions, and obviously that's what we have to deal with. But like, that sounds similar to like how it was growing up Amish when I was a kid. Like, oh yeah, you get up. There's zero room for like getting up late or something. No, you get up exactly this time, and then you do the chores for this long. You have breakfast at this time. You do, like, the whole day is like work, like is scheduled for you, or is like, and that's kind of maybe how it was long ago. I don't know. It's just a question I thought about. And today, with all the distractions, it's almost impossible to do that unless you force yourself with systems. And it's like you have to like you say, abusively attack it, and like set so many boundaries. And that's why almost nobody does it, and everybody's so distracted.
Right.
But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, a lot of it too is like, I found it's kind of the forbidden fruit syndrome. The more I watch every single video there is on YouTube and LiveLeak, the more I don't want to watch videos for the rest of the day. Like, I
was actually thinking you might say something like that, because when you spread it out, you get the chemical in your brain to go off more often, and you're like, oh, I don't need this so much by the time you get to the last ones.
Right.
So it actually helps you do less when you spread it out, probably.
Yeah, and just owning it. It's just like, now that I've gotten older, I've had to get a little bit more strict with my diet, especially like carbs and sugar. So I still eat carbs and sugar, but I just got to be careful. It's better if I eat them later in the day, not earlier. It's better if I eat them around my workouts rather than in the morning or whatever. And so just being more strategic. So it's not no carbs, it's not no sugar. Right. It's just careful, be strategic, be wise when you spend those bullets.
It's
like
what you want to do because you want to do it, but you're being careful and in control.
Right. And then you start to build the confidence of like, wow, I got this mess somewhat. It's still a mess, but it's still somewhat under control. Now you're making promises to yourself. You can trust yourself. You have some confidence. You're like, okay, what I can really do now, that was so successful. And so like, it took you forever to finally get it. But now you're like, what else could I do? You're like, now I could probably shave a couple minutes off my goof off time, still have them just as frequent and a little bit more work time. And then you get the reward. Because it's like, it's a difference between like what feels good in the moment and what's rewarding long-term. Like, my job in life now has never felt so horrible. Like, my day-to-day, I feel my body is just miserable. Like, I hate the emails. I hate the editing, everything I don't like. But like, the reward at the end of the week is just like, it's a totally different experience, feeling, something to live for.
Fulfilling.
Yeah.
It's that wide a gap. Like, you feel that bad during the week.
I feel horrible all day. I hate it. Feels like junior high.
Well, what's the reward? How can you feel so good?
Because I'm finally doing a job that I am able to grow as a person and give to other people. And I don't care if it is doing plumbing and sanitation in Portland, Oregon, where I can see that, wow, this old lady that had flooding going on in her house, and I've been able to solve that. This is just a figurative thing. Like that is very fulfilling to bring help and value to the tribe members here and see myself grow as a person and overcome my fears. Or if it's what we're doing right now in the psychology world of like, wow, I'm talking to people that are struggling with life issues and complicated things, and be able to give them some kind of light and help and lighten their burden and give them the tools to start moving in their own life for themselves. Like, how rewarding is that? You know, now you got to pay for it day to day of all the tech work and all the stuff that you hate doing, but then to get that end reward, it feels like it's like inside myself. It's finally very calm, very clean, very gratitude, very positive, very happy, healthy, but still the outside is pissed off and frustrated and negative in the day-to-day, you know?
Okay.
So all the negativity is on the outside. It washes off real quick, but I get some more tomorrow, and it washes off, and I get some more tomorrow, and the inside feels good.
It just comes down to basically doing something that's really difficult, or like denying yourself. Like, it's just so much work, but then it's fulfilling in the end. I've noticed this too, you know? I'll go through weeks where it's just so much work and stress and anxiety, and then I'm like, at the end of the week, I actually got a bunch of stuff done. But it's like that basic thing of, like, if you can do something fulfilling, like maybe the way to get there is to do all these systems and this really hard stuff. But at the end of the year, like you were saying, you look back and you see everything you've accomplished, and it's extremely difficult in the moment, you know. And I don't live this out, you know. I'm still learning everything, but like, it's so, if you want to, that's what like self-help or growth is all about, right? Is like, how do you know, do things that are extremely hard to grow you as a person and to be able to give back, right? Be fulfilled, even though it's extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's really cool. Hey, we're about an hour or so, Jiraiya. How are you doing? Are you close on your questions?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I might have had a few points here that I wanted to ask, but they're minor. We kind of covered them mostly.
Okay. Yeah, we had some really fun systems discussions.
Well, let's go a little bit more. I mean, yeah, I don't want to take up Dave's time, but a few more questions here that we could quickly touch on, and then
make these quick hitters.
Yeah. So we might have to add this in the beginning or something, Spencer, but I'm gonna ask about the how your if you're doing a business, how your product is 1% of your business, or how you're like, and we started talking about this in the beginning, we didn't really finish it, but like, you want to, you know, like, it's your product. Like, when you start a business, you feel like, I have this amazing product that I want to give, and you think, if I just have a great product, it'll sell itself, and that's all I have to focus on. We'll talk a little bit about that, Dave, about how that's not the product is like 1% of your business. I think you told me that, but
I mean, the E-Myth always talks about like McDonald's, and you can continue that kind of view of looking at things. Like, you go to Home Depot or Walmart or watch Amazon or whatever, where you're watching the business shows, we get to kind of see behind the scenes of how much nuts and bolts is really going on to make that product consistent. And it does feel like, at least for myself, kind of going through my own journey, that it goes back to those two identities, where like at the beginning, it's mostly about you, the business owner, and the product. So you want the product to be most amazing, and you're there really for yourself. You're there to prove yourself.
Yeah.
You're there to make money. You're there to feel good, because I got away from that job that makes me work 9 to 5 and has all this structure over me, which is what's coming in your future from yourself, by the way, but you don't know it yet. And so it's all about you feeling good for you and your product. And then later, as you kind of continue down the business, and as your identity kind of grows, kind of to more of the adult business owner, it's more about, it's not about having the best product at all. It's about having the most consistent product that works for my customers, or the large percentage of my customers, for the longest amount of time, which means, so what works for Sally in Wisconsin has got to work for Billy in Florida, which means you got to kind of even it out, which also may mean, which I continually find, means that I don't like it, but all my customers do. So it's like, now I'm taking myself more and more, my ego, out of the product, and putting it more in the hands of what the people like, what the people want, what's useful for them, as well as what the suppliers like. Meaning, like, can you mass produce them? We saw this constantly in RC world with the foam. Remember that, Jiraiya? Like, nobody could get foam more than once. Like, that 6mm Depron foam that comes from Norway.
Yeah.
Like try and
Yeah.
get another box of that. Like
So
this whole,
expensive.
yeah, and then they don't make it. Now it's different. It's just like, if you're putting that kind of stress on your customers where you can't produce that consistency, that is a huge unforgivable sin in business. You know, if all of a
Everybody
sudden,
went.
There's
Everybody
a similar go ahead.
foam. Everybody went with the cheap foam that works. I mean, it's not as good as the Depron, but
right.
Yeah, there's a similar analogy in software engineering world where 10% of your software development is actual development and 90% is error handling.
Right.
Because you think that writing software, well, the goal is software, but the goal is really to handle the errors that users throw at the software so it doesn't break.
Right.
And so it's just like with a business where it's the factors you least expect that take up the most percent, which is like Pareto's law, like with the 80% of your growth is caused by 20% of your sources and your customers.
Yeah. It's the 4-hour work week, right? They talked about the 80-20 rule. Huh.
Yeah, it goes back to that pyramid where the bottom of the stuff is a lot of the boring nuts and bolts stuff. It's not fun. It's not romantic. It's not glamorous. It's extremely draining. It's frustrating for anybody. You're not going to like it. And then that top is that product or the meaning or whatever.
Yeah.
And the true business owners are the ones that really just accept that process. They're not, they get through the stage of I'm in it for me. The one thing that to kind of bring in that really helped me see this, there's a huge difference between being a business owner and being somebody who is taking advantage of a money-making opportunity, right? So let me say that again. Huge difference between being a business owner versus somebody who's taking advantage of a business or a money-making opportunity. Like, for example,
network marketing?
Yes, or there's stuff like this is what I'm thinking of like you can buy and sell stuff on Amazon through drop shipping and you never actually have it at your house. Like,
oh, okay.
A lot of my friends were like, hey, there's this new thing, Amazon Associates. You can make all this money, blah, blah, blah. None of them did it. None of them stuck with it.
That's usually the opening line. A lot of my friends say, hey, there's this new thing where you can make a lot of money. That's a business. That's a money-making opportunity. That's not a business. Because I've seen, as I've gotten older, and this is what a large part that I had suffered with early on is getting caught up in money-making opportunities. And then the problem is you make a ton of money. Look at the top YouTubers now, like Jake Paul and Logan Paul. They've got a great money-making opportunity. Is that scalable for 20 years? No.
Depends.
They got to change that and morph that and move. They're selling merchandise and everything else, but like usually the way these things turn out is it's going to be a lot of money for several years. But you're talking like
plateaus,
10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Like, is that going to be sustainable? Passed on?
Yeah.
Like things get challenging. Where the point is like you can make a lot of money for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and it's still not really a business, because when the storms come, when the recessions come, when the scandals come, when all the challenges come, only the business owner can get through that because they have the systems and the conscious know-how of how to build it and maintain it. The money-making opportunists, when all those hard times come, it wipes them out, and they don't know how to reach out to a team or do systems or restructure or rebrand or any of that stuff.
Wow, that's crazy because, like, a lot of my friends also have gotten into network marketing things where it's like, they pitch it to like single moms or like it's this way to make money, easier. It's like easier than a real business, and I think my opinion is there is no easy way to make money, especially long term. Yeah, it's like, and people don't realize like if you want to, business, you gotta. It's almost like, and you've said it this way, and it's. Might be controversial, but like it almost has to become your identity in a way, like, and you have, in order to stick with it long term, or because if you go for these little things, which and most people would say, no, I don't want to make my business my identity, or I want to have a balanced life, but then they try little businesses and they always fail, and that's why every business fails, is because they see it as a money making opportunity, like you said, and then they don't have they're not a business owner, they don't have that mindset.
Right. And the big advice I would give out to any young kid is just embrace that. If you're in your 20s, look for fast money-making opportunities that are good for you. If it's in your tech skill to be able to work that kind of code and make money, do it. And get as much out of it as you can for yourself, because that's what your body and energy is going to be full of. No matter what I say or E-Myth guy says or anybody says, that's what you're going to do anyways. But what's good to know is like as you're doing that, you're learning how to grow as a person. You're getting the experience. You're now going to get a lot of problems coming your way, which is great, because if you can get your problems figured out, and when you're 20s and your 30s, and when you're in a smaller kind of setting, then you can really kind of retool and figure out, because you could be the grown-up and the adult and the owner and the provider later. You don't have to be that as a 21-year-old, you know, like it's just how it ends up working out, as ideal as you'd want to make it. So it is good to kind of jump in for that, just to be aware of who you are and what you're doing and for what motivations. Therefore, when things change, like, oh, I guess this money-making opportunity has given me a good 5-year run. It's now coming to an end, and I don't need to panic about it. It's time to move up to the next stage, you know?
Yeah, well, it's like not a catch-22, but like it's that thing where, yeah, at first you don't know, you don't have the mentality of a business owner, and so you just got to jump in, try things, and you failed, right? You just fail until eventually, you know, you learn from the failures, and you don't, you know, if you stick with it long enough, eventually you will have a business mentality.
Yeah.
And but then you have to be looking at the long term, because if you're doing, not that network marketing couldn't work, but I think that's just a little off point. Like I do know a few people that are successful in network marketing, and they've been doing it for 10 years. They have the business mentality.
There you go. They made it based an actual, you could tell the difference with someone who's in the business of that versus somebody who's just doing a quick, fast cash grab. You know, I was doing RC largely for a money-making opportunity. I wasn't really in the business, and it kind of shows. Like the flight test guys, they're business guys. They're actually there doing it the right way, you know? So just being aware of where you are in the equation, you know?
Hey, sorry, I dropped off. Didn't mean to be rude. My audio completely went out, and I think another Bluetooth speaker connected to my computer, and then Zoom got all messed up. So I went to find headphones, and then turned out my sound was back. So now I'm here.
Cool. It happens.
So where are you guys at?
Yeah, like my headphones kept disconnecting, and it's funny, I just thought of it in the beginning. My headphones kept disconnecting, and I was like, wait, what happens if they disconnect during the call? This is before the call. And I was like, well, let me plug in my other headphones. It's like, I was like, wait, that's a system, you know, like a backup plan. Like,
yeah,
right.
That's true.
I'm the only one of the three here that don't have a fumble situation with the microphone and headphones. The only guy with tape on all of his stuff, so I know
That's
exactly
right. There's no question marks.
Yeah.
So the funny thing with Zoom is it's on a Mac, which I have, the sound and video can be a little finicky, where sometimes like it has the whole test set up when you get on, like, hey, test your microphone, speakers, whatever. And I won't hear myself in any sound source or hear myself talking at first. And then when like Jiraiya gets on the call, suddenly everything lights up and I can hear everything. Like the test won't work. Other days the test works and no one hears me when I get on. Like I need a system for Zoom.
Yeah.
It's so confusing.
Systems.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got two quick question. I just want to milk this as long as I can. I know I'll get this chance probably for a while, but you guys had at some point stressed the idea of, and this was, I think, kind of in 4-hour work week, like this idea of kind of valuing time, and like the idea of like fake work versus real work. Like if you just measure your work by how much time you put into it, it's not real work. Or if you're just doing something, like if you're just doing work, that's not real work, is how you guys put it. The only real work is if you're doing work that eliminates future work, or like is eliminating something in the future and making it easier to do to the next time you do it. Like, what is that? How would you describe that?
Yeah, we really try and divide everything into just like, we'll look at it as like, we'll call it lever pulling work. So anything that either ourselves in a dum-dum state or an employee or a machine can just pull a lever and then the thing is done. So, you know, the dishes, the chores, the yard, as many things as we can get to where they're very simple. And then the things that are going to require ownership mindset, we want to eliminate as many tasks as we can. So how can we get emails down? We're like, oh, only the owner can answer those because they're asking for the owner, and there's only answers that only that person can take care of, right? And so by creating like an email process to where you could get down questions into kind of a 0 and 1 format where people are either asking this kind of question or that kind of question. We did this in the RC business where we had every kind of question kind of T-squared out and answers all set up. And those were made from experience. So after you answer a few thousand emails, you realize you're just coming back
There's some
around.
patterns.
Yeah, exactly. So you can go back and re-grab them. Like, I've already answered that. You go find it in your Gmail and then paste it in a Google Doc entitled, email answers. And it gives you at least a paragraph to start with. So when you write it to Bill, you can put his name on it, tweak a line or two, and then send it out. And when you get that system down enough, then you can start handing that off to lower and lower people. So I can hand it off to my number 2 person. They can then hand it off to the number 3, number 4, and kind of get it systematized. So you can hire somebody from Craigslist who's halfway paying attention and they're still able to deal with it to some degree. So that's like an example of like looking for areas like that to eliminate that, because that's not real work. Answering emails is not real work.
Right.
It's like, is answering emails bringing money in? No, it's just holding the lines. Is doing the chores real work? Is it bringing money in? Is it moving the business forward? Are you becoming a threat to your competition by vacuuming the floor? No, you're just holding the line. It's the creative processes of thinking about the next version for next year, or how to redo the web page or the sales page, or creating some content. That's the forward moving stuff. So being very, again, we kind of look at it as a Maslow's hierarchy of need. When we first started all this, we did write out everything that we do, everything from cleaning out the chimney to writing sales letters to the chores, just every single thing we did. There was just hundreds of things, and we wrote them all out on Google Docs, and they all eventually had their own individual Google Doc. And so every department was owned, and then we were able to kind of prioritize them and go, wow, here's all the stuff down here that if you're doing it, you're not moving the business forward. You're just holding the line. And then these things up here are the ones that are moving the business forward. And then just being very conscious and accountable of what you're spending your time on each day, because the lower ended stuff wants to come suck all your time. You then get all that stuff done. It's extremely rewarding. It feels good in the moment because, hey, I did all these things. You feel like you got a lot done, but you're just sitting on a boat, just throwing, buckets of water overboard, not really going anywhere.
Versus paddling.
Yeah, versus paddling.
Yeah. There's always like fun things that I like to do, like, oh, I made this cool video today. It was fun, it was creative, and that's okay, I guess. But like, it was like a free video for someone, and but I felt accomplished, but it didn't move my business forward.
Right.
But,
so it's being conscious of that, being conscious and being accountable. And when you're goofing off and doing stuff like that, just being aware of it. It's amazing how much, like, when you have some accountability and structures and systems in place, like how much you can goof off and things will still be okay. Like, the universe is not in any way, shape, or form demanding perfection. It's just asking, would you please not completely ignore these 50 things of reality and then obsess over these 3 things and continue to do that for a year until I bring a disastrous tidal wave on you to wake you up? Could you just maybe not do that? So it's not asking for a lot, I found.
Interesting.
It only looks like that when you don't, like, once you start giving up on those things that are begging for your attention just a little bit, then you realize how little importance they actually have compared to getting the overall mission accomplished, which they change as the mission changes.
Yeah. And so you can't, one thing we've really learned in our psychology field of how much we as humans we're not geared to see reality. There's a guy, Donald Hoffman, he's a real scientist. We follow his work, and he's done a lot of research and really realizing and showing and demonstrating that as humans, as well as other animals, we're not geared to see all of reality. That's not how we're wired. We're geared to see certain spectrums and certain portions of reality. And you can see it in your mother-in-law, like why she can't understand the tech world, but you can. Or your friend that like doesn't get social dynamics, but your other friend is really good at it. Like, and you're like seeing how, you know what I mean? And so it's like with a business, you have this 360-degree view where you have to, with the psychology stuff, like different functions, there's a set number of things you got to pay attention to. And as a limited human, you're going to be really good at these and not good at those. Yes. And you can have conscious moments, like when you stay up all night with your best friend, you're really diving deep and having all these epiphany moments. You are at times able to get these aha moments of this side over here, and it's mind-blowing. But then in the morning, you forget it all because your unconscious comes and goes, you're not supposed to look at that, washes it all away, and you go back to being a dope over here. If you can capture some of that through writing it down, or we'll like audio record meetings and stuff, but also like going through people's business books or having partners, writing stuff down in Google Doc to kind of create, we call it the walls of Jericho, where it's just kind of like you're building this structure of getting all the walls kind of filled in, and then you can kind of come in and fill them in with more color and detail
Yeah.
of all the different things that you're supposed to cover, because your brain is only going to see certain things. So like our whiteboard in the morning, our Google Doc where we lay out the things that we're doing for the day and the week. It's hilarious that like we'll write stuff down of like, oh, here's all the stuff we got to get done. And then like I'll look at it the next day and like totally forget. Like, oh, I think I'm done. And I'm like, oh, that's right. I have to do that. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You know, so you need that accountability somehow through writing it down, through working with your team, through listening to other people that run businesses, just knowing that you're not going to be able to see the whole spectrum, and you got to be able to work with that.
Is that why it's important to write goals? Because yeah, you guys write goals all day, every day. It seemed like
Yeah.
things you have to do that day, that week, the month, and I guess that just gives you something to focus on, right? Like writing down goals. And
We do. This isn't literal, but this is pretty close to this. At least it sounds cool. Is we do have 4 whiteboards on our refrigerator, and they kind of unofficially represent like 4 different departments. So one whiteboard is just for chores and household BS. And so like, hey, order groceries, or get the mailbox thing, and like that'll go on that one whiteboard. And then the other whiteboard is just kind of like the work stuff that we have to do the next day as far as production. Plan calls, videos, editing, podcasts. So that's on one thing, and that'll kind of get checked off. And then the other ones will kind of cover, miscellaneous riffraff. The point is like, we're constantly trying to make sure that we're aware of that project in the attic better not get forgotten, because the summer's coming, and if you don't get it done, now you got a problem in June. And so it's trying to pay attention to all the corners of the castle,
Have you read Getting Things Done?
I don't know if I have.
So David Allen wrote that, and it was actually like the second book we did on the show.
Yeah.
So he talks about how like you capture all the things you want to get done in like a central repository that you hold somewhere. Like if it's a inbox on your desk where like a sticky note goes down with take out the trash, like you capture every thought on this inbox, kind of like these whiteboards on your refrigerator, and then you just categorize it all, and you get everything done by getting the system set up so that on the right day you see the right sticky note that reminds you of the right thing, so that nothing falls through the cracks. It's keeping that constant kind of set up around you so that the system works for you versus you forgetting things because they weren't captured some way. Right.
And the reality is it takes years for you to get your own actual system for that in reality to work for you. Yeah. Because it'll be a combination of whiteboards, Google Docs, 3x5 cards, phone apps, whatever. It's a hard game. Like what I've always told myself is like, this is hard. This is impossible. I can't do this. But I'm like, okay, if I can get this done, you get $1 million. Like make it like a game show. Like this is impossible. I quit. Okay, go ahead, quit. Everybody quits. But if you can get it done, on the other side of that door is $1 million. So I'm like, okay, all right, let me try this.
I can do this.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So, it's all this, it's probably like overwhelming for most people, right? To me, it's like, wow, all these crazy systems for life, business. It seems a little bit extreme, like it just overwhelming. Like, how does someone start, or like, can someone do this to what you guys have done on a smaller scale, or just like start with basics, like, and just do some systems? Because I know growing up, we didn't really have any organization of any kind, really. It was more just, very spontaneous living. And I've realized that I don't like that, or it's not good to just be spontaneous, or just to like to just always live in the moment, and to be just constantly just, one thing after another, like no planning, no like going by the clock. But anyway, so how does someone just who's not good at organizing just start simple and just like have maybe a whiteboard in their house, or like something on a smaller scale?
Yeah, we get that a lot in our business as well. People asking like how they get started in life, and no matter what it is. I could just say what has worked for me is I've watched myself that if I see the task at hand as too big and too important, I will just get scared and never want to confront it, never want to get started. And so, for example, when I was younger and being, kind of going through the socially awkward stage and afraid to talk to girls and stuff, I was just too terrified to go up and talk to a girl at a coffee shop. right? And so too many years are going on. We're like, and so this is like representing like, how do I start a business? How do I talk to a girl, you know? And so eventually when I shifted it to, all right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to a coffee shop. I'm going to go to one out of town. So if I make a fool of myself, nobody catches me. And I'm just going to talk to an old lady. And then I was even too nervous to do that. So I just talked to an old guy. And then so just, okay, let me just talk to a stranger who's going to die in 6 months. How about that? And so then I'm just talking to old people. And then from there, like, okay, that worked. And then I could kind of talk to people a little bit more my age. And then eventually I could kind of like, you know, smile at a girl and like work my way up, you know? And so the game I have found, kind of looking back of like what has worked, what has not worked, is I think one thing that really worked out for me very well is that I didn't fully love the RC airplane business, my first business. I knew it was just something to get me going. It wasn't what I was fully deeply passionate about like I am with the psychology stuff now. And I think that worked as a huge advantage because it allowed me to be like, I don't care. I bombed this conversation with this old lady. I don't really care anyway. So I could walk away, like, I'll try it again tomorrow. I think a lot of people get too wrapped up in this business is my identity. This is the most important thing. If I fail,
make this conversation perfect.
Yeah. Or I get kicked off the island. That's like the unconscious, you know, I'm worthless.
Yeah.
And it's like, it like, I think back to like Doc Brown's car and Back to the Future 2, where he's like, my car now runs off of garbage. It's like, if you can figure out how to get your car to run off of garbage, if you're a kid stuck at home and with all this negativity and all this crap, if you could figure out how to work off of that, you have an unlimited supply of forward momentum.
Yeah, so it's all going to be there still.
Yeah. So like my advice is very opposite. My advice is like, and take this in context again, like earlier, like take what I'm saying in context, like start with something you hate, do something you don't care about, do something that is meaningless, because then you're just slopping through the process and you're fearless. Because when you go to systematize something that you don't want to do and you don't even do it because you're lazy and you got distracted, you don't care. And therefore you're not beating yourself up. And then eventually when you get to organizing your shoebox or selling some junk on eBay that you stole from your mom's closet because you don't even want to work with your stuff, we'll just steal some of that. Great. Do whatever you got to do to kind of flirt with reality. And then when you taste that first success and you weren't even hardly trying, you're like, okay, wait a minute. And that can start to get you moving, because it's what's the most important when you're 50, 60, 70, is it like, really think about this. Is it about whatever business you and I build? Because whatever it is you and I build in 10, 20, 30 years, it's obsolete. It's done. It's gone. Who cares? Somebody can do it better. Like it's not the business. We're not in this for the business. We're in this for who we are as people. You are growing you as your identity and your person to become the adult, the responsible one, the alpha. And therefore you can now give from a state of an abundance, no matter what it is you're doing. So like, it's not about the job. It's not about the task. So like, therefore these things you have right in front of you, these things are opportunities to build experience and start to level your way up. And your ultimate goal is you're building you that then is expressed through your business. So therefore all of a sudden your eyes are open. You're like, huh, well then I can just, sell this thing, or I can organize this thing, or I can get started on this. And I don't really care.
Don't follow your passion, basically.
Not at first. That because you will hit your passion is like a Death Star. It will suck you in, but you have got to get out into the game, and your passion will find you. I don't think it's the other way around for most people. You got to get out there. You got to get experience. You got to know how to do stuff that you're going to have to know how to do no matter what you do. You got to know how to do emails. You got to know how to talk to people. You got to know how to be on time. You got to know how to systematize to some degree. So
you might as well mess out. You might as well mess up outside your passion,
right?
Because then you save your passion for when you're actually on your game.
Right, but here's the thing that people don't realize is like when you're doing that, you're playing with fire in a positive way. Because when other people that are walking around the universe, like us here, like imagine right now if you see some 16-year-old kid, going through your trash, you're like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm just looking for stuff to sell on eBay. Like, oh, really? Well, how's it going? Now you're like, well, you want some help with that? Like, when you start going throughout the universe, bettering yourself, other people see that. And like it becomes a problem where you now will have people saying, hey, well, I have something that you could sell. Well, hey, maybe you could do, and you're going to like, Jari, you've experienced this. You now have other people inviting you to level up, whether you're ready or not. And so the universe and the calling and the passion and all that stuff will start to come to you just because you're getting moving.
It's true. Like I was just talking about this, like, I have, in some ways I've, in doing my business the last few years, I've neglected maybe some relationships and in some ways maybe in an unhealthy way, but like now it's like people sometimes will invite me over for dinner. They'll invite me, whatever. They'll want to, like, not to say like in a bragging way, but, and it's like, I didn't like try to please them or try to, or, I just like, I'm just doing my thing. And is that kind of what you're saying? Like,
Right, exactly. Right, exactly. You're moving confidently throughout the universe, doing something to better yourself, creating positive energy, and that attracts people to you and situations to you. And Thomas Edison, I remember kind of studying him before I got started with the business, and he was just talking about this overwhelm. He's like, I have too many things to work on. There's too many inventions, too many opportunities. I'm like, wait a minute. How do you get to that point where you're seeing like these Shark Tank guys where they have more opportunities and more money and more things that they can go at that they can even deal with? And it's just because they get on this path of this positive just spiral that starts to build up over time. So yeah, starting that snowball small with whatever you got, and you start rolling that thing, and it will quickly get out of control. You will have more opportunities and more people and more things coming to you as you're building whatever it is you have in front of you. It's weird how it works.
And it doesn't look like that from the snowball. It starts like,
No,
it is
doesn't.
interesting.
It's like, there's no opportunity. There's no possibilities. It's like I'm just stuck the same way. And then as you become successful, it's like there's too much success or there's too much opportunities that I can't handle. Crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
This has been extremely fun to talk about two books that were very good the first time, but even better the second time, with our having a special friend of Dave Powers on the show. So thanks for joining us, Dave.
Yeah, guys, really good stuff.
Fun to hear about your systems and how you apply it in life and business, and how it makes such a big impact. Because, I'm a big systems guy, but little did I know you could make the dishes into a system the way you have and make it that impact your business, which is really cool. Would not have put the two together. So where can people find you online if they want to follow you?
We are right now at objectivepersonality.com, as well as Dave Superpowers on YouTube.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And we thank you guys for listening. And to hear a book like this every single week, you can just tap subscribe. We do a book on business, leadership, self-help, and we'd love to have you join us. Please leave a review on iTunes. Helps us out a ton in the show rankings. And check out our website and survey. That's at motivationminute.com, where you can get the books you want to hear on the show and possibly come on as a guest like Dave. So thanks again for joining us, Dave.
All right, guys.
And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks.
All right. Yeah. Bye.